Hello everybody. I'm going to be talking on this particular video about a problem that mankind is faced with and that nobody knows how to deal with. And I have the solution. Yeah, it is true. So the problem is that we have always, of course, in one way or another, we have always had our own culture. Yeah, we've always had our own language, our own habits, our own ways. Yeah, they say when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Well, people have always had their own particular ways of doing things, their own beliefs, their own types of food, dresses, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, cultures are just what they are. Wherever people grow up, wherever people happen to be born, they are going to be affected by the habits, by the language, by the rituals, whatever it is, with the beliefs that people have within that culture. There's no way around it. So cultures have always existed, and to some extent you could say cultures have had a certain lifespan. Yeah, that the cultures could go on for a long time, especially in those times that people were still mainly agricultural. Yeah, but then modernization has happened, technology advanced, and yeah, we moved from being agricultural societies to we were of course first hunter-gatherers, and then we moved into agriculture, and then from agricultural societies we moved into industrialized societies, and then we became more urbanized. And so of course all of this has happened, and all of this is still happening, and there is an inevitability about all of this, because history has happened, right? History is made, you can say, but history has happened. These massive changes in societies have occurred and continue to occur, especially since we are now living in the days of artificial intelligence, where we are going to witness how artificial intelligence is going to again drastically change everything, because it allows us to deal with information so very differently than we have ever been able to deal with information before. I know this is just a simplification, but that's as much as I can tell you. Or, I only know what I know. And so what all of this implies is also that with the changes here, look at the beautiful sun coming over the hills there in the distance. I always love that moment, and I feel so fortunate that I am here again to see another day, literally, and to enjoy my bike ride with the sun shining on my face. And it's such a lovely, cool, early morning. But what all of this entails, and what all of this also involves, is the fact that human beings have had languages, they have had cultures. Yeah, these cultures, they came and they went. Some cultures they completely wiped out. Some languages were completely wiped out. And many cultures have come and gone, and they will never be there again. And other cultures have continued, have of course dominated other cultures, invaded other cultures, appropriated other cultures. And this is how countries have been occupied, people have been occupied, people have been exploited, people have been murdered, people have been wiped out. societies, yeah, buildings have been built and temples and all that, and wonderful monuments have been destroyed, and so forth, and it continues to this very day. People are still doing this, but there is a particular problem which has never gotten our attention, which has never been made clear to us. Not in the autocratic societies, in the autocratic societies where people live under autocratic rulers, dictators, where people are very afraid to say what they want to say because they may get murdered or tortured, or their family will be murdered. And so there's all these other cultures where people have no freedom of speech, and people are forced, coerced, intimidated, threatened continuously to conform to whatever it is that the people who are in charge want them to say, how they want them to be. There's no freedom to be who you want to be. No, you're supposed to be that way that they want you to be. And otherwise you lose points. Like in China they have this point system. And then you lose freedoms. It's interesting. Then you are going to not have access to a lot of things that other people have access to. And you're being punished for your bad behavior or something like that. And the punitive aspect of such a system, where a person has a certain score, and based on this score, this person has a certain importance in society. Of course, this still occurs in every society, whether it is a free Western society or not. There are still certain points that we can score. Maybe it's not as specific, or maybe it's not as explicitly visible or noticeable or discussed, but of course it is hierarchical in every society where you go. In every society, one person is presumably more important than the other, and therefore has more rights than the other, therefore is allowed to say more, has more influence, and the other person supposedly has nothing to say, or is not important, is not supposed to say anything, has got to be quiet, has got to behave well, must be obedient, must conform, must behave according to certain rules. And if they don't, then you get punished, then you get thrown in jail, then you get fired, you get excluded from the group. You get excluded from society, you get excluded from the family, you get excluded from the religion. So what we are seeing here throughout history has always been the case. And this is also what any kind of literature will tell us, any kind of interesting story about people and about what has happened and how people have made it, how people have survived, how people have endured, how people have come out on top again, how people have struggled, and how people have suffered. Any kind of story about that is always in one way or another referring to how the individual is in conflict with the group. And there are many different aspects of this. Maybe this person is taking it very personal and is beating himself or herself up over the fact that he or she doesn't fit in, and believes that there's something wrong with him or with her because he or she doesn't fit in the group, whatever group they want to fit in or they happen to be exposed to. And if you grow up in like I did, in a Catholic culture, then you are bound to want to fit into that Catholic culture. And if you can't do that, if you fail to do that, if you try to do that but you fail, and if you just believe like, well, doesn't matter, I'm just doing my thing. In spite of you doing your own thing, you're still going to have a conflict. And that conflict is between you and the group. And that conflict is going to continue. That conflict is going to eat at you. That conflict is going to consume you. That conflict is going to drain you. That is going to ruin your life, basically, because that's what it does. That's what all conflict does. All conflict ruins our lives. Yeah? We don't have happy lives. We don't have peaceful lives. We don't have productive life, meaningful lives. Conflicts make everything meaningless. And so these conflicts, they continue as long as we do not have the language with which we explain to ourselves correctly what is this conflict. So, stated differently, the conflict continues as long as our language incorrectly describes this conflict. And that is, in my opinion, what is happening. Yeah? And I, of course, speak from the perspective of someone who has embodied language. And I describe that conflict with my embodied language. I describe the conflict of disembodied language with my embodied language. And only someone with embodied language is able to do that. And so, what is this wrong description of the conflict with disembodied language? In disembodied language, the person who speaks doesn't listen to him or herself. Yeah. So, in disembodied language, the way in which people speak is such that we are busy talking with each other, listening to each other, but we're not busy, like I am, talking with ourselves and listening to ourselves. So it's only once we start to do that as an individual, because there's no platform, there's no group that does this as of yet. Yeah, I have created those kind of groups in the past. I have brought people together. I have given many groups, but none of these groups have resulted in, or could result in retrospect, it's all very clear why that couldn't be the case, but none of it has resulted in the continuation of a group of people that talks with themselves in such a way, of course, that talking with yourself is the way in which they talk with each other. Yeah. So I am right now, I'm making this video, and I'm talking with myself. And this is how I talk with you. So there's no difference between how I talk with you and how I talk with myself. Yeah? And so this is what embodied language is all about. That there is actually no talking with the other. You are always only talking with yourself. And to put it differently, in terms of language, you can only use the words that you have. Yeah? You can only base whatever it is that you're saying on the experience that you have had. And or you can base it on something that you have heard, or based on something that you have read, or you see what I'm saying? So it always pertains to your experience and your way of being able to express that experience with your language. And that expression of what you as an individual experience with your language, that expression, which I call embodied language, that expression goes against all group behavior. You step out of any kind of group behavior to be able to have that expression. You are just totally on your own. You're talking about yourself with yourself, and that is what this expression is. And people have never understood that. That we need to say that very emphatically, we need to say that very clearly, very repeatedly, very confidently, and very freely and consistently. That this is how our language works for us as individuals. So our language is then effective because it is aligned with, or it represents correctly, it describes correctly what we experience. And so the conflict between the group and the individual is solved in our embodied language. And there's no way to go back to disembodied language once we know what embodied language is. Yeah, and of course there's the history of conditioning that will bring that regression about, or whatever you call it, that relapse or whatever. Yeah, it will reappear, your disembodied language. Yeah, it will happen again that you fall back into the habit of not listening to yourself. But every time you catch yourself, every time you notice, even for a moment, yeah, even if you haven't done anything about it, because there's no way to do anything about it, there's nothing to be done about it. You just at some point realize, like, oh my, I'm stressing out, I'm worried, I'm freaking out, I'm tense, I'm anxious, I'm frustrated, I feel I don't belong here. I feel like I'm not needed. I feel like I am not respected. I feel like I'm hurting. I'm insulted. I feel like I am not valued. There's all these experiences that we can have. That we feel lonely. That we don't feel connected. That we feel lost. That nobody likes us, that nobody loves us, all that. And so every time that happens, we are again in, morning. Every time that happens, we are again in the grip of our history of conditioning with disembodied language. We're not listening to ourselves. So even if for a moment you realize, like, oh wow, so if I begin to speak out loud, if I begin to make my experience clear with my language, the language that I have, the way of speaking that I have no other way than my frustration. I have no other way than my anxiety. I have no other way than my despair. I have no other way than what I know, the words that I know, the language that I have. I have no other way of being me with my language than with the words which I know, and with I cannot speak the language which I do not know. And if I am stressed out, I can only be stressed. And if I am frustrated, I can only be frustrated. If I am lost, I can only be lost. And so there's going to be a sense of oneness with your language when you realize that language was, of course, not happening inside of you. You were not troubled because of thoughts. You were not troubled of stuff happening inside of you. You were troubled because you didn't have the overt means. Language is an overt means to put your own experience in perspective. To say, like, well, okay, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, I'm upset because I don't know. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe somebody died. Maybe you have a setback with your business. Maybe you tried something and it didn't work out. And so you can talk with yourself, you can speak, and with your language regulate your own nervous system. And that's what you do, actually, when you speak in the way that you address your experience correctly. So if you start speaking about your anger, your frustration, your anxiety, your stress, the fact is that you do not do that. You do not do that. You do not speak about your negative experiences in such a way that you actually hear them, that you actually experience these negative states, these negative experiences. So your language is always, in disembodied language, in which you do not listen to yourself, something where you move away from your experience, or seemingly, because it is not real. You cannot move away from your experience. Your experience is still your experience, but it appears as if the illusion is created in disembodied language, as if with your words you can distance yourself from what you actually experience. And so then that gives rise to this notion of inner speech. This gives rise to this notion that you have thoughts, that you have an internal conflict, or that there's stuff going on inside of you. But there's no such thing when you really accurately describe with your words overtly what happens. And so this morning I was talking with a history teacher, and he was telling me how he was teaching primarily Latino kids, and they are of course very interested in Latino culture. And we were briefly sort of just talking about the fact that that each culture has their own narrative about what history is, and within each culture, of course, there are also different people who say, no, it is like this or it is like that. And so whoever is able to good morning, whoever is able to win that conversation, so to speak, to win that debate, they are the ones supposedly who are writing history. It's interesting that history was written. History is being written. Well, of course, this is what inevitably always happens. People want to hear their own history acknowledged. And even though these histories that they are trying to describe are inaccurate, and even though they are incomplete, or even though they are utterly false, full of superstitious beliefs and all that, it is still their history. And so, and it is more valuable to them than anybody else's history. That too. Anyways, I see somebody who I want to say hello to, so I'm going to leave it here for now. And I'll talk more with you later, okay?